This is Let's Talk with Mark Elfstrand on AM 1160. Once again, here's Mark.
Thanks, Wayne. Friends, good afternoon and welcome to our program, Let's Talk. And for the next several minutes, we're going to be talking about what's been happening in the Middle East that has garnered a lot of media attention, of course. One of those tragedies was 3 Israeli teens being murdered. And then there was a Palestinian boy also who, well, it was brutal what happened to him. And, you know, there's no accounting for people who claim they want peace but can't seem to quite get there. We're going to be talking about this for the next few minutes with Dr. Glen Duerr, Assistant Professor of International Studies at Cedarville University in Cedarville, Ohio. Dr. Duerr, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a very sad thing to watch in a culture where you'd think that people living so close to each other could manage to take at least some serious steps towards developing relationships that at least would hold them at bay in terms of peace for a while. What caused this latest outburst? I mean, was there anything political that was in the dynamic that was happening?
Well, since Israel's independence in 1948, there's been an underlying tension. So, in essence, there was nothing out of the ordinary, at least in my opinion, but it's a very tense situation, one that could basically flare up at any point. And so, I think we've reached a very volatile stage here, potentially, in the future of Israeli-Palestinian relations. This, to me, is a low point in the relationship since November of 2012, and my fear is that it really could escalate into some kind of larger-scale violence. In Israel, recently, there's been a larger debate over hitchhiking, which is actually how the 3 young Israeli teenagers were initially captured. And so, from the outset, there was nothing obvious that sparked this crisis.
All right. When we take a group of people who has long-standing tradition of defending their culture, I'm talking about Israelis here, and then you have a mixture of Arab cultures, and how do we define Palestinians by background?
It's extremely difficult, and it's extremely controversial because you have a non-contiguous territory that makes up the Palestinian territories. You have the West Bank, which is historic Judea and Samaria, and then you also have the Gaza Strip, which is a very small piece of land that borders Egypt on the Mediterranean Sea. And so any formal identity is one that's very difficult to put together. Now, they've existed as a unit, like I said, since 1948. And so there is a history of being Palestinian. It's underlined by speaking Arabic, by being Muslim. That really doesn't separate the Palestinians from many other parts of the Middle East, but it comes down to then territory, residence within these areas. And so it's somewhat of a nebulous identity, but it's one that's there nonetheless. And I think in large measure it's put together in opposition to Israel.
You're no doubt aware that there would be many people living in Israel Israelis who follow Jesus, and there would be Palestinians, many of them, who follow Jesus. Can't they lead the way towards peace in some fashion?
There have been long-standing overtures to do just that. The problem is it's such a small minority, roughly 8%, and so it's very, very difficult to do. And I'm taking Israel and the Palestinian territories together, and so there's no real hold-on power in which to make institutional changes, and so it's simply a very, very difficult situation. Christians have long tried to move for peace, but it's one, like I said, unless you have the reins of power, it's very difficult to do.
This